All right, so we're gonna put a set of instant chains on this here truck. I've had it for quite a while. You may remember these boxes from such films as other videos I've done where they've been sitting here for the last month. But so I got a little break in the repairs where I can try to get these things on, or at least get started with them. So they come in that kit there. I'll show you this. This is what they look like in the end. Well, minus the salt. So we gotta hook these little adapter. I don't know. They're kind of big nuts. They're like 2.5 inches long, maybe 3 inches, and half of it is threaded the size of the U-bolt, and the other half is threaded for, I believe, a 5/8 bolt. So this is kind of what they end up looking like in the end. It's just what happens is there's a switch up in the cab that applies power to a air valve that sends air to these cans here, and then once they extend, they push that arm down, and then these wheels here hit the side of the tire, and then as they spin, the chains whip under the tires. So it works nice in like low traction situations, primarily on ice and stuff. Yeah, so the first thing I gotta do is clean up the U-bolts. Now these springs were changed not too long ago, so it's not that big of a deal. If you had like really old U-bolts, then you'd probably have a very hard time cleaning them up to the point where you can actually thread something on there, because they basically just rust, and that's about the end of it. You probably have to cook the rust off and then hope the threads are still left. So these are the little adapters. See how it's one size here and one size there. So I had to cut all those off. I think 1 3/4 was the maximum length that they could be that would still work with this, but I believe I cut them down to about 1.5. I tried to have it about halfway here so that the bolt can go in halfway on the bottom. So there's that. So I got to clean up all those U-bolts. This is pretty much the kit you get. So you got your hardware, you got your wiring, you got some plates and stuff here. These are what bolt to the bottom of these. So it bolts on the bottom of that. And then you got these longer ones that bolt through this, that come back. And then you got a couple of these plates here, bolt to the longer ones. And then those air cans bolt to these plates. And I think the arms are bolted on these plates as well. Well, the arms are in the bottom box. So I got 2 boxes. But this is basically what these look like. So it's got a rubber end on them, a rubber side. So this is what rubs against the tire. The tire spins them, and these chains, like I say, just whip under the tire. So there's some air line. I'll have to tap the air line into the air tanks, and then yeah, so I'll tap the air line in the air tanks, then they go into the electric valve, and then the electric valve, which is right here. I don't know if you can kind of see it. Let's see if we can open it. I mean, they're pretty simple. So that's the valve there. Basically, air goes in and then air goes out, and it just opens and closes. And that's how that works. So they give you a bunch of fittings and stuff. So first things first, we gotta clean off these U-bolts, which I initially started trying with this, heating them up and just trying to kind of cook the rust, but didn't really do that great of a job. So what I am doing now is I am using a little wire wheel on a die grinder, and I'm just kind of running around them. And then I gotta use, oh, not use, but I have an extra nut. These are 7/8 U-bolts. so it's 7/8 of the fine thread. And I'm cleaning it up with the die grinder first, then I'm spraying a little penetrating oil on there, and then I'm running that nut on with that electric gun there, and cleaning up the threads. So it's working all right. But like I said, these aren't that old. They haven't even been on here a year, so it's just primarily been part of the winter. So that's why they're as easy to clean up as they are. Usually they're basically, you might have to change them. So keep that in mind if you're installing these on a truck that's had the same U-bolts on for quite a while. So that's what I'm doing. I already did the other 3 on this side, and I have the other 4 on the other side to do. So that's how I'm going about doing that. All right, they give you a pretty in-depth installation instructions. This is the solenoid diagram to plumb the air to them, which really, it's not very sophisticated at all. Pretty easy. So this is the installation guide. Here. This is kind of the assembly that you're gonna have. The one that I'm doing, this is a generic. This is like the #1 diagram that they have. They have 6 different diagrams on assembling these. This is not the one I'm doing. This is just, I guess, a display, or like a parts diagram. So before you order these, you have to do a rather extensive measuring form, or fill out a form that's got a lot of measurements you have to take. You got to measure pretty much all kinds of things and answer a bunch of questions. I will put that form in the description. So once you do all that, they come up with a kit for you, and so this is, they actually go ahead and then they give you what bolts you need, what coupling spacers and nuts. They tell you how to mount them, the distance that you have to offset the nuts and the bolts. It's pretty in-depth diagram here. So they want me to mount this in front of the drive axle, but I don't want it in front of the drive axle. I want it behind the drive axle because I don't have a lot of room up there. So I'm going to flip it around. I don't necessarily see any reason why that should be a problem, based on the fact that it's all coming off the center line. I might have to do a little fine-tuning to get it to work. I was told in the past, because this is the first one I'm installing, but we had on that other truck, I guess a kit came that was supposed to be mounted in the front, and they mounted it in the rear, and they didn't have any problems with it. So that's what I'm going to try to do, just because if I mount them in the front, then they're going to be in the way anytime I have to do any type of air can or slack adjuster repair or replacement. So I'd rather not put them right where I know they're going to be in the way. So you get a lot of things here. I mean, this is kind of how you're going to set the all the plates and stuff up. So you're going to start with your coupling nuts, which go on the U-bolts, and then you're going to put your spacers in here, the coupling nut spacers, and then these are going to be the cross plates that I showed you. And then, what does it say? Cross spacers may be inserted here to lower the chain unit down a little bit lower. Our mounting tube is not going to be underneath, it is going to be on the top. So that's not going to be an issue. So then you get your mounting plate that the which is this little guy right here. Mounting plate spacers may be here, inserted here to lower the chain unit, instant chain unit. So that's going to be this arm right there. You can kind of see how they got spacers and such. I mean, if you order a kit, then you're going to get all this stuff with you as well. Let's see, here's a little diagram for the those coupling nuts that I showed you. So you need 3/4 of an inch minimum if you have the nuts in place, or 1 3/4 inch maximum if you do not have the U-bolt nuts in place. So as I say, remaining U-bolt thread must not exceed 1 3/4. Trim bolts if necessary, must be minimum of 3/4 of thread. So yeah. So step B, OEM U-bolt nuts should be left in place. So go to step 1A, skip 1B. So I'm skipping 1B, which is to trim them down, which I already trimmed them down. But if the remaining bolt thread is longer than 1 3/4, you need to be shortened as the coupling nuts are only threaded 2 inches deep. This can be done with a cutoff wheel. Install the coupling nuts below the U-bolts, leaving the U-bolt nuts in place, and torque to 128 foot-pounds. Use anti-seize on the U-bolt threads. So you'll do that. I don't have front disc brakes or whatever, so I don't need to worry about that one. So we're going to put those coupling nuts on, never seize, and torque to 128 foot-pounds. For this installation, assemble universal mounting brackets as shown in mounting diagram 4. So they give us mounting diagram 4, which is this diagram here. But I mean, as you can see, there are a few different, 6 different diagrams. So we need to use the 2-inch U-bolts, or 2-inch bolts, and the 1/2-inch coupling nuts on the front, and on the rear 1 3/4 and the 1/4 inch coupling nut spacers on the rear. So and then attach a mounting tube to the top of the cross plates as shown in mounting diagram 4, and then attach a mounting plate to the bottom of the mounting tube. Slide the plate from side to side so that the center of the mounting hole closest to the tire is between 1 3/4 and 2 inches away from the sidewall of the tire. I may have an issue on the passenger side because when they replaced the springs before I got here, that whole axle is kind of shifted to the driver's side a little bit, so I really don't have very much clearance on the passenger side, so I got to see how this is going to work out in the end. I may still have to remove those U-bolts and slide the whole axle over, which is not going to be fun, but it is what it is. So top of the mounting plate should be level, and I guess we're still on here. Too much of the side of the tire. The flat side of the mounting plate faces the tire. Align the mounting plate parallel with the tire at this time. Snug down bolts, not tighten them all of the way. The mounting bolt hole should be 11 3/4 away from the center line of the axle. To reach this measurement, slide the mounting tube forward or backwards on the cross plates. Step 5, the top of the mounting plate should be level and should be approximately 11 inches off the ground. After installation, check these measurements now for reference. If these are correct, the wheel should hit level and at the correct height. You should still have to check the angle and height of the chainwheel once it's installed. So you got to do obviously some checks along the way. Here is another view. So they give you the specifications, a side view of where the wheel needs to be, and then the level up This should be level or up 2 inches, level or up to 2 inches down toward the rear. So the front of the vehicle is this way. Then you had the angles. So the wheel's supposed to hit 3 to 4 inches off the ground on the tire and 8 to 15 degrees down. So that might obviously change side to side with these spacers here. So let's begin. First steps first. Let's put the U-bolt coupling nuts, 128 foot-pounds. So I'm going to liberally apply some of our anti-seize, because we will have to save these if we got to put new springs in it, and springs are a pretty common thing. Don't be afraid to put too much on. All right. So. All right, so these are 1 1/4. Oops, went too high. 40, 130, 128. You know what would be nice? A creeper with brakes. You end up pushing yourself all over the place. So I'll grab those cross plates and the bolts that go with them, and the spacers, and we shall mount those next. All right, so I got our brackets. We bolt on this way with the hole on this side, and then the sliding tab on this side, so you can kind of adjust it. I believe that's how it goes anyway. So the 1/2-inch collars with the 2-inch bolts go in the front. The 1/4-inch collars with the 1 3/4 bolts go in the rear. I didn't know by reading the directions exactly why they wanted it that way, but I believe that other bar, the mounting bar that goes front to back, that goes on top of these, is supposed to be level. So what I did was I measured off the ground to the bottom of this, and the rear is 1/4 inch lower than the front. So that would be why you got the 2-inch ones in the front and the 1/4-inch ones in the rear. So it keeps that center, or that tie-in bar, whatever you call it, I don't know exactly what it's called at the moment. It keeps that level. So as I'm putting it together, I was kind of concerned that maybe it was that way to tip the wheel one way or the other, because as you could see when we went to the instructions, how the angle of that made a difference. But I'm pretty sure that the reason for the spacers is because of the front U-bolts being up higher than the rear, so it's to keep that bar level, is what I'm thinking it is. So I'm pretty sure I can just continue on the way that I'm going. So these are 5/8 bolts. Come up to the bottom, 1/2-inch spacer. These are going to be torqued to 178 foot-pounds, the instructions say, which is kind of a lot, but that's what they say, so that's what I'm going to do. I don't know if I need washers on that though. Alright, so it does call for washers. So washer, plate, spacer. You know what? I'm all over the place. 1-inch. Alright, we'll stick this side together. So the book said 178 foot-pounds for this. Which seems like a lot if you ask me, but we'll get ready. All right. So that is that. Next step, we got to put the cross sections in, or the bracket. I don't know what to call it. That other piece. Now let's see. What do we got? 10 and 3/4. 10 and 3/4. So it should be level now. So these are our slide tubes. Bolt on like that. We'll have to measure, make sure the bolts are where it's supposed to be from the center line and the who's a doozy and the what's a what's. So yeah, all right. You go consult with my instructions. All right. So I mounted these bolts here to these tubes. The 4-inch 5/8 bolts with the locking nuts. I got them just kind of snug so I can move them. So we're gonna mount these plates underneath. Want these plates to be mounted parallel with the tire, and let's see, 2 side plates, So I want the center of this mounting hole to be 1 3/4 to 2 inches away from the side of the tire. And it also has to be 11 3/8 from the center line of the axle to this. And we'll have to slide this tube back and forth to get it to line up. Let's see. Oh yeah, well, I'm definitely far enough away from the tire, so I don't have to worry about this side. So, now on the side, let's snug these up a little bit. Attach the mounting plate to the bottom of the mounting tube. Slide the plate side to side so that the center of the notch, or the center of the mounting hole, it should be mounting hole, I'm guessing. At the center of the mounting hole, closest to the tire, is between 1 3/4 and 2 inches away from the side wall of the tire. Figure B. Make sure that's the right hole. Figure B, yep. So it's this hole here. 1 3/4 to 2 inches away from the sidewall. It also has to be parallel with the tire as well. And it should also be 11 3/8 away from the center line of the axle. So let's see the center line of the axle. So we have 4.5 inches between these two, here to here. So we're going to be looking at 2 1/4 to the center line. So I'm going to measure off the back of this and then add 2 1/4 to it. Or I can take 11 3/8 and subtract 2 1/4. I'll take the 11 3/8 and subtract 2 1/4, and that should be 11 10 9 9 1/8. So this hole here needs to be 9 1/8 from the back of this bracket. And we are 10 1/2. Okay. So that's 9 1/8. Let's tighten this up a little bit. Check it again. 9 1/8. That should be good. I'll snug up the other bolt. Alright. There's that. So now I need to get this over. to 1 3/4 to 2 inches. 4. So I gotta take some of this weld. I got a big glob of weld there. I gotta cut some of that off because it's interfering with the tube. So I'll set this side up. Between 9 1/8. Alright, so 1 3/4 to 2 inches at a time. At about a little under 2. That's that side set up. I'm going to mess around with this side, try to get this side where it's supposed to be, or as close as I can get. Yeah. So, I'll work on this side. This is how you set that side up. This side's going to be the same. I gotta trim this bit of weld off here. I don't know why. I don't even really know why that's on there. Doesn't exactly make sense, but anyway. So I gotta grind that down so it sits flat, because what's happening is it's there and it's kind of popping sideways because the way this weld's kicked forward and where the tube is. So that's what I gotta do. So I get that side on. They want to bolt these assemblies on. So it's kind of what they look like. So I put the other side together. Here's your chain wheel. Chain's bolted on. And you mount like this, because when it's spinning you want the chains down. So it mounts on there like this, and then that kind of swings over. So this one's a little bit different than any of the other ones we have. The other ones we have were just basically a round hole here and a bolt went through. This one's got like a ball and a socket. So this ball goes in here, and you can kind of change the angle of these, probably to give you a little more play. Because, I mean, scenarios like this, like I'm going to have to try to adjust this side over here a little bit with this here, because I can't get more than closer than 3 inches, but it's supposed to be 1 3/4 to 2. So I'm going to have to see if I can get this to work. I can change the length of the throw out ball here for this, so hopefully I can just extend that and it'll push farther, and then I'll use this the ball and everything to kind of get me closer. Other than that, I'd have to take those. I'd have to take the whole thing back apart and cut the U-bolts off this side, and then try to move the axle over a little bit, about 1 inch or whatever it is. But anyway, so take the ball, put the collar on, take this little guard, stick that on too. It's got a little hole there, so you can grease this through the hole, I'm guessing. And then, yep, see, that'll line up there. So you take that, set up like that, nut goes on. Take this out. I think this thing's got them special locking washers on there. I call it like a Nord lock. I don't know if you probably can't see it, but it's got like a serrated washer here and then serrated there, and then inside between the two you got serrated also that oppose each other. So it's like these will tighten, and then they lock in. It's kind of neat. I've seen them before, but I've never actually seen them. I've never had them in my hand, but I've seen them online and such. So I'm just going to tighten this down so I can tighten this nut here. So basically, I mean, this collar here, or guard, has 2 little standoffs in it that go around this arm. So just gotta line that up while you're tightening it as well. So we are done with what we can do so far. So next I need to put the wiring in, and so I got some of this all tight. I mean, I didn't tighten everything down. I just got it all kind of snugged up, you saw. Nothing's all really torqued tight. So what I gotta do is I gotta put the air lines in, and I gotta put the switch in, and wire it so we can actuate this and have it sit up against the tires, and then we have to do the rest of our checks to make sure it's adjusted right, and then we'll have to do a final adjustment at that time, because these wheels need to sit angled a certain way, and they need to be positioned in a certain position on the tire, and you're supposed to have 20 pounds of pressure up against the tire. So yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna check 20 pounds of pressure against the tire. I got like a little hand scale that you could pull with, so I mean I could put it close and then kind of pull on it and see what I get. But I guess this side over here, it's gonna be the side that concerns me. But I might be able to just rotate this way. So instead of being over here where the arm hits where it's supposed to hit, I might be able to just rotate this in so it swings it in, and then I get that extra little bit out of it. So we'll see how it goes. But so next step is plumbing and stuff. Alright, so I'm out the air valve. They gave me a little bracket, this little L bracket. They wanted the valve mounted to a cross member towards the back, but because as this chain drags along, it sheds a lot of salt down underneath it. I didn't want to put this back there underneath the sander because then it would get covered in salt. So I just made a little piece of channel here, and I'm gonna bolt it to the frame on the inside up here, right there, and then I will plumb it and then run the air lines along the side of the frame. So right near the tank, so I'll splice into one of these somehow, and then I'll kind of run up into it and then along the back. I didn't want to cut any of these lines because I don't know what they actually control. I mean, most of the stuff's brake related. The transmissions run off something too, but I didn't want there to be a pressure drop on any of the lines that might adversely affect whatever that line's connected to, and start doing stuff I didn't want done. So I took out this top fitting, and I'm gonna put this T in and stick that fitting in the T over and go this way with it. So it's gonna be like that. I didn't really want to mess with this. This is a pressure blow-off valve, and I didn't want to stick that out to the side of something and have it get covered with salt or anything, so and corrode and get all jammed up. So I chose to leave it where it is. So I'm gonna run the hose into the valve and we'll connect it into here. Alright, so I changed my mind. I took this valve off because it stuck out to about here, and believe it or not, we get a lot of brush and stuff that comes by when you plow on the side of the road. You get branches and things that stick out, and just a lot of things that'll grab it, and I don't want it grabbing that and then breaking the nipple off, because then there's going to be no air left in there and I'll have to go out and repair it. And I figure if I need to have that fitting in there, I will just bring it with me and install it, or I can install it when I need it if it's here, because I mean basically it's going to have to be shop air hooked to it anyway, so it ought to be here so I can just put it in if I need it in there. I'd rather not have it sticking way out like that and run a risk of breaking it, because then I'll have new problems. So I just opted to put that 90 that they sent with it, with the kit. So this is just a compression fitting. It's got a ferrule in there, and then it's specifically for airlines, so it's got this little standoff tube in there as well. I also found that they remade these air valves, so you have to plumb them from the opposite side. The old valve that's on the other truck is made differently, so the in and the out are different. You can see here the in is higher than the out, but on the other valve that's the exact same thing, same part number. Must have been an older valve. The in it's higher on this side, and then the out is on this side. So I blew into the line and air was just blowing out the bottom of it. So that's how I knew that I had it plumbed wrong, so I had to take it out and swap them over. So I'll take some zip ties. I'll zip tie this up a little bit, something to kind of keep it from flapping around. Let me tie it to here or something. So there's that. I'll have to continue plumbing it to the rear. I'll probably just put a T in the back, right above the two lines, and I'll run one line up instead of two lines back. That's how the other truck that I have that we drive is plumbed as well. So that's how we'll do that. Alright, so I tied my power for the toggle switch to run the air actuator into the fuse box here. So I used one of these add a circuit things. It's not what came with it. It was just like a fusible link is what came with it. But I used one of these add a circuit things, and I just put the fuse that goes with it in there. And then I tied it along, ran it in. I tapped in my ground right here. That's just to illuminate the switch, really. Ran it behind the dash, and then right here is where I put the switch. You know, this panel here. So I came in over there to power, not to power this, but to run the power out of the switch, and then snap that back in. It's just got a toggle. So toggle on, down, off. So that should be all I need to do in here. And the rest will all be basically outside. I will have to start it and build up air pressure again. But so I came in right there. You see where the blue wire is right there. I came in there through that, it's like a plastic. They got knockouts and stuff there for the airlines that come through. So I just drilled a little hole in there, tucked it up, went over the steering column, and then over to there, and then in behind the dash for the power in, well, not the power out. So this is where I got to with this. So I'm going to run it down along the bottom and follow the harness, and then probably along the cross member here, and then right over to there, and then I will have power there. So you can see where I got the airline coming in, and then the airline going out. So I ran that all along the frame rail. You can't see it, well, maybe you can't. Anyway, so I ran it all along the frame rail. Down here, tucked out there, T, and then down to both cans. Alright, so got an angle finder here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check it on the top of this wheel, and what we need is 8 to 15 degrees angled like this into the tire, and then level or 2 degrees down front to back. So I already checked it. I'm pretty good side to side, but I'm off front to back. I'm actually tipped in the wrong direction, I believe. But well, I'm just tipped too far. So I'm going to loosen this up, and I'm going to adjust this. So loosen up these bolts here.
So we're about 2 degrees back. 1, 2, yeah. Yeah, about 1. That's good. I'm going to be 8 to 15 side to side. Let's see. We are, yep, 8 to 15 side to side. We are at 12. So I'm going to say this one's good. I'm going to tighten these back up.
Control. You let the bus company know it's being shut down temporarily.
Alright, so we'll have to go and torque all these. It says you want 20 pounds of pressure against the tire. It feels pretty tight. And you want to be 3 to 4 inches off the ground. We are right in the middle, about 3.5. So I guess we should be good on this side. We'll set this other side up same way. Maybe a little indication. Right there, something like that, right? So let's turn it around. Ow, right in the head. Oh, let's see what we got over here. We are tipped down. Maybe a 10, a little under 10 degrees in. So I just gotta tip this one that way, and we should be good. All right. We are level. So we are, what, 1 degree? 1 degree back. And alright, we're like 10, 11 that way. And we are pretty much level this way, right? We're right on. We're on 0. I'll take that. So, just a little bit. So the instructions come with a whole list of torque specs for all these. Show you the right height. We are 3.5, between 3 and 4. So I think we're good. Just have to make sure you're out of the center line. I think we're good. So just got to tighten all this hardware down. you got the one there. Another one there. It's like a cat pressed in here. And down there. See, it looks like a universal joint cap. So, that's how you put in an Insta-chain kit. Give you this sheet with all the torque specs on it, but honestly, some of them are really difficult to read. So, if you go to install one, you'll get the same sheet, and you can get your torque specs off there. I did most of all the 5/8 stuff to 128 foot-pounds, and then some of the other stuff, it's a little difficult to read what it actually is, so I'm going to kind of weed through there and come up with what I come up with. But anyway, so hope that can help somebody. If not, let me know what I did wrong, and thank you for watching.